there's a seed that was planted at that tiniest version of you, like a weed. And from that weed has grown all of these things: insecurity, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
physical things like headaches, like IBS. That's a huge one for people
Mm-hmm.
that have experienced trauma, whether they realize it or not. All of these things have grown from this seed. And when people go in and they fix a little part here and it's like clipping off the little top part of the weed.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to go and get that seed and dig up the root so that once that's gone, all of those things go away. I've worked with people who had a multitude, a laundry list of
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. One off the top of my head had 17 different difficult
Wow.
symptoms. And by the time we were
Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between.
Hi, and welcome back to the Becoming Sound podcast. I'm Krista Zaft, your host. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're with us. And today, my guest is Laura Ordile. She is a mindset mentor and a master hypnotist, as well as a professional intuitive and astrologer. She uses that combination of skills to tap into your own success, opening up your life quickly, easily, and completely. And a great side effect of that is that you get to hold on to your sanity and your soul as you go. She knows that when you change your mind, you can change your life. And I'm really excited to learn more about hypnotherapy and anxiety and complex PTSD today with Laura. So let's just dive right in. Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's a good day to be here.
It is. It is. So where are you coming from today?
Montana.
Beautiful. So we're just going to jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your story and perhaps how your childhood impacted you as an adult.
Oh, goodness. Um, my childhood was my childhood was a little bit rough. And you only see these things when you grow up and realize that, oh, maybe that wasn't quite how it was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad divorced when I was, really little, about four,
Mm-hmm.
I think, between 4 and 5. And I remember my dad telling me, he remarried really quickly, and she did, she did not like me. But I was tiny, and I remember him telling me that one of the first things I asked him at one point was, do you love her more than you love me?
Mm-hmm.
And for this little tiny person, it kind of breaks my heart for this little tiny version of me that was there wondering if daddy still loved her. And
Mm-hmm.
but my dad was military, and so he kind of lived all over California mostly. And so I went back and forth between my mom and dad. I got to see my dad and for visitation, and then I
Mm-hmm.
actually lived with them for a while, and that went way bad. And and I think I went to 4 different high schools at one point, and I was that kid that just, y- I don't know I guess there's probably people that do feel like they fit in, but
Mm-hmm.
I talk to the majority of the ones that kind of feel like, no, they didn't really fit in. And because I didn't fit with any particular group, I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And there were some traumas and dramas all mixed in with all of the things that were happening, and some situations that were abusive in a lot of different ways, and really
Mm-hmm.
difficult. And I didn't know how much that affects you until now. Until
Mm-hmm.
being the grown up and learning all of those things. But yeah, it took me down a road of a lot of different difficulties, I think, in my life, making what I thought were decisions in a good way, but I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea that I was choosing over and over really difficult things, and
Mm-hmm.
not the best things, but I was kind of searching for a sense of being okay, just
Yeah.
being okay. And so I thought each one was going to somehow help me be okay, and even not really realizing what that meant or looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got married really young. I had 2 beautiful children. I got divorced fairly quickly. Um, Went into an abusive relationship, and ended up leaving that and into another really difficult relationship. And it took me a few years of that And then finally it's like, I need to do something differently. I need
Mm-hmm.
to do things differently. And I got into a job fairly quickly after that, and then ended up meeting the person I'm still with. We've been together 26 years now, almost 25 years. And but all of that kind of drove me to find a peace within myself, to find that place of being
Mm-hmm.
okay at the center, kind of no matter what was going on around me. I wanted to
Yeah.
feel okay. And so little pieces at a time, I found how to do that. And so that's why I do what I do now, and
Mm-hmm.
try to help people find that
Yeah.
quicker, way easier than I did over, the lifetime of years. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can do that for someone, then wow, that's magic
Yeah.
for me.
I think that's a common narrative of people who go into the coaching or healing field. And it's because we want people to not have to suffer as long or not have to go through some of the stuff that we went through. Like, how can we teach this to people earlier so that they can find themselves or find that little sense of peace within themselves, regardless of what's going on, a little sooner in their life, right? I mean, you go through what you go through, and it always teaches you things. But I think that's very common. That same thing for me too. I love helping people find their true selves a little sooner than I did, Although it's never too late. It's never too late. So I like to
That's
point
right.
that out. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about what you do? And I'm really interested in hearing about the hypnotherapy and how that works with people who've gone through trauma or who've had difficult childhoods and seem to be repeating patterns over and over, that type of thing.
So I love hypnosis and I went in and I didn't know I was going to end up really training and specializing kind of in the people that have trauma
Hmm.
and PTSD, CPTSD, and all of the symptoms and things that kind of fall under that tree that are so numerous. But
Yes.
usually when people have trauma in their life, they have more than one thing that's going on,
Hmm.
whether they recognize it or not. I didn't realize at the time until I went into hypnosis, started studying about the mind and the unconscious mind and all of those
Hmm.
things, that there is so much. There's everything. Everything is stored in our unconscious mind. Whether you remember it consciously or not, you remember it.
Yeah.
And your body reacts to that
Hmm.
and goes off of that. And so it happens. And the way that hypnosis works a little bit, I kind of am like, I use a couple different terms, but is a little bit like tour guide Barbie. I go in and I kind of guide you and I help you and I do that. But sometimes it can be a little bit of hostage negotiation too. There's a little bit of that going on. And that's because there are versions of you, parts of you that
Hmm.
have been developed from that younger age that have come in and created your unconscious protects you always. Your
Hmm.
unconscious is trying to protect you, keep you safe, and keep you living. That's what it's doing. That's why you're breathing today. That's why you are able to
Hmm.
talk. That's why you're able to do all the things you can do because it's protecting you.
Yeah.
But what happens is from a very young age, maybe something happens when you're tiny, 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 like a
Hmm.
baby or even, a year old. Let's say your parents have a big argument. That's kind of frightening and scary for this little tiny version of you. And your unconscious mind, subconscious mind, I use them
Hmm.
interchangeably, creates this version of you with this little warrior version that comes out and says, I've got you. I'm going to protect you. And then
Hmm.
you get to move forward. And then maybe a few years later, you start school, there's a bully, something happens again. I've got you. And it comes out and it creates this version. So all along your life, almost like those little dolls that go in one inside the other,
Yeah.
the
The stacking dolls.
the
Yeah.
stacking dolls.
Yeah.
Um, that's a great way of seeing how you're built. There's all these little
Yeah.
versions of you along the way. Well, what happens is these little versions can get trapped in that particular instance. So it's reliving that traumatic version of what's going on for them. Whether you think it's traumatic or not, you wouldn't think that maybe an argument from your parents is traumatic,
Hmm.
but to that little 9-month old or 1-year old baby, that was traumatic. And so it's living in that fear, living in that
Hmm.
difficulty, living in whatever it's living in, anger, anxiety, whatever it is. So those little parts of you are there. And the unconscious controls things. So what happens is sometimes these little unconscious parts come in and go, hey, I need attention. I
Mm-hmm.
need attention. We need to talk. We need to work this out. I can't keep living like this. But
Mm-hmm.
we just keep going because it's like, no, no, this is the way we go. This is the path we take. Our little unconscious bus driver is driving along. It knows the route because it's based on all of these things that were installed in you. All the, like in a
Mm-hmm.
computer, all the hard drive, all the
Yeah.
software that's installed. So it's going by that. So hypnosis comes in and says, hey, we need to delete this line and maybe add in this one and add in this one. And then that changes the directions for the bus driver. And then the
Mm-hmm.
bus driver can come and meet up with this, and you get to meet up with this version of you that needs attention. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you've ever had a puppy, you know that a
Yes.
puppy comes and wants attention, right? Wants
Yeah.
attention, wants attention. Well, if you don't give that puppy attention, it goes off and it chews your shoes and it pees on the carpet and does
Mm-hmm.
all these things that are difficult. But if you give it attention, you have this lifelong friend that is there, that is always a part of you. And that's what we need in a part of us. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis does. It goes in and it does this negotiation. I get to say, hey, there's a part of you that needs help. And your mind knows everything. Let's go find that part and bring a reconciliation together so
Mm-hmm.
that nothing can come of that and disturb you going forward, because there's a seed that was planted at that tiniest version of you, like a weed. And from that weed has grown all of these things: insecurity, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
physical things like headaches, like IBS. That's a huge one for people
Mm-hmm.
that have experienced trauma, whether they realize it or not. All of these things have grown from this seed. And when people go in and they fix a little part here and it's like clipping off the little top part of the weed.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to go and get that seed and dig up the root so that once that's gone, all of those things go away. I've worked with people who had a multitude, a laundry list of
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. Um, One off the top of my head had 17 different difficult
Wow.
symptoms.
Wow.
And by the time we were done in 6 weeks, that laundry list was cleared
Wow.
because we went in and we pulled that up at the root and
Yeah.
said, we don't want any of this stuff, because all of that stuff was coming from trying to get her attention. I need
Mm-hmm.
help. I need help. I need help.
Yeah.
And
I
that's what
love the
goes
way you
back to
explain that.
healing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that is such a great visual of complex PTSD. Like,
Mhm.
and how it forms in the body and attaches to these little parts of you. And how, yeah, that is a perfect explanation. I've never heard anyone explain it like that, but I have so many questions. um, yeah, that is a great visual for people who really don't understand complex PTSD, because it really is so complex. And I love it that people are talking more about it now than they used to. Before it was just PTSD, and I related that to people who went to war or were in a car accident or something big traumatic had happened to them. I didn't realize that I had complex PTSD. I would have never even thought of that, because you hear your parents argue, there's trauma in the house and whatever people go through. It's like all these little pieces are getting stored inside you, like those stacking dolls. Yeah, that is a great. Can you explain a few more symptoms that might be coming up as complex PTSD? And I mean, I'm not a medical professional either, but when I start looking back on different kind of ailments, not just for me, but other people that are talking about autoimmune diseases and like conditions that they're having, that it's like the body's attacking itself. Our bodies are not made to attack themselves. There's something happening that is causing that. And so many times I hear people say, well, there's nothing that they can do for me, like medically, right?
Yes. And that is the biggest thing. And so with just the example of like my life,
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
thought that was life. And
Yeah.
that's what most people think. I just had life. And one thing I hear that will often kind of notify me that something more is there is, oh, I've dealt with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I've dealt with that, you know,
Yeah.
but they're still having
I've said
issues.
that.
And, and I'm like, oh, okay. All right, let's see what you've dealt with. And as I
Mm-hmm.
start to talk to people, I have a big list that I go through when we initially connect. And it's so fascinating to me because someone will come to me for anxiety. They come to
Yeah.
me for anxiety. And then I run through this list and we start talking about things, and they have hypervigilance. They have headaches. They have sleep issues one way or
Mm-hmm.
another. They either can't get to sleep, they can't stay asleep, both. They have nightmares, night terrors. They might have sleep paralysis. They have alcohol or medication drug issues that are going
Mm-hmm.
on. They're so dependent on so many different things that
Yeah.
it's interacting in their body in a bad way. Not to mention mentally. Gosh, I mean, I wish I had my list in front of me. But
That's okay.
it goes into IBS, to digestive
Yeah. I
issues,
was going to say
to
digestion
eating,
is.
to eating problems, to weight issues. If you're struggling with weight issues,
Mm-hmm.
it goes into confidence, and this is so fascinating for me because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who just are like, I'm stuck. I'm just stuck. I can't reach the next level, or I can't
Mm-hmm.
get there. Well, more than likely, you've got something, that one of those little lines of code that's holding you back, saying it's not safe for you to
Yeah.
go to that next level. So interestingly enough, it shows up that way. It shows up in your career, in your business, in your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
in how you are communicating with people, in the fear that can come up about a simple, what if I say that, or what if they don't like me for that, or what if, the what
Mm-hmm.
ifs that take you down this crazy road. But it
Mm-hmm.
manifests often in our body in pain in some way. Often in pain.
Yeah.
You can have chronic back pain, um, and oftentimes they'll be, well, you might have this, they'll find an issue. You have this little thing there,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the body progressing in life. Or you have high blood pressure, or you have autoimmune is huge, huge in there, chronic fatigue, um,
Mm-hmm.
fibromyalgia. Those types of things come from your body saying, they're, we're suffering.
There's
We're
something going on.
suffering. We need
Yeah.
attention. We need to clear this old stuff that is
Mm-hmm.
accumulated here. And if you've ever, so I use the puppy as a way of explaining one thing. And another way, which is a little more vicious, but I want you to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important and why it comes out in the way it comes out in your body. If you've ever had a teenager, you will know this. You've been a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Teenagers want their way,
Yeah.
and they want things the way they want it, and they can be vicious in the way that they deal with things and get your attention, or do different things. They're in between that child and adult, so it manipulates in a way that does not come out well. If you've
Mm-hmm.
got a hurt teenager inside of you, can you just imagine all the spiteful things that they could do to get your attention?
Mm-hmm.
All of them. And they will do
Yeah.
it. They will absolutely, because they know how to push it. They're you. They're going to push every
Yeah.
button they can push. They're going to give you all the detrimental thoughts and they will come up with, and I find this so fascinating. I deal with people all the time, even in hypnosis, when I'm doing hypnosis and they come out and they go, oh, that was interesting. I had one person who came out and she didn't tell me right away. We had to work through it and everything, but she said, oh my goodness, I just had this voice kept repeating, this is BS, this is BS, this is, and it's this angry little version coming up and
Yeah.
going, no, 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 you need to listen
Yeah.
to me, it has to be my way, because they're angry, they're
Yeah. It's
upset.
like the
And
angry teenager, right?
even
Yeah.
though they want reconciliation, they want
Mm-hmm.
love, they want wholeness, they're going to fight about it. and they're going to be like, but I'm in charge, and
Yeah.
try to hold on to that because they're going to try and punish you for a little while. And I know that sounds crazy in terms of punishing yourself, but it
No.
happens. It happens all the time. We have this version that's in there and is like, you can't listen to that other, me as the hypnotist.
Hmm.
You can't listen to them. I know better. I'm the one that I'm going to run things.
Yeah.
But that's where the hostage negotiator comes in. And it's
Yeah.
like, let's
Well,
find out what you're upset about. Let's go in
yeah.
and clear this and get to the base of it. Because
Hmm.
sometimes those versions of you are continuing that protection process of the even younger version that's
Yeah.
holding that seed that's there.
Yeah.
So, does that
Yeah.
make
I mean,
sense?
I couldn't relate more with all of this because, and I've done some inner child work, right? And we went back to like 5, 6 years old type thing when some different things happened. But in all honesty, as you speak about that, I'm realizing that my inner teenager who was a jerk, like an absolute jerk, and very, very angry. And I was angry as a teen. That's when I switched from the people pleaser to the completely rebellious and you can't tell me what to do and this is all bullshit and just the whole, I was very, very angry at everybody. My dad, my mom, you name it. Nobody was my friend. And although I didn't show that on the outside, but that was who I was on the inside. And as I got into my first marriage, I was really angry. Like that teenager showed up in full force in that relationship. And it wasn't until I had my kids that I realized, holy, like there is a part of you, like this angry teenager cannot be raising kids. Like you just cannot be raising kids. And that's when the realization came. But that's so interesting because it's exactly what happened is that teenagers are vicious sometimes. If you've ever argued with your teenager, you know what we're talking about, right? And it's so interesting how that manifests later in life.
Yes,
And
it is. And
yeah.
and they will bring about some of the most difficult things. They will
Hmm.
bring about, dissociation.
Hmm.
Which for anyone who doesn't, that's kind of stepping outside of yourself to just not be involved in life or in the situation
Right.
or whatever happens. The dissociation, oh my gosh, I just lost the word, but when you repeat, OCD is a huge one that's in there for people.
Hmm.
And then what happens often too is people don't understand that this can be something that has carried through your life. And they might say, I've always been anxious, or I've always
Hmm.
been a hothead, or I've always been this, but it can also be something that shows up out of the blue. And this is when you were talking about sometimes with, that you thought kind of it was people who had served, in the military or who
Hmm.
had traumatic experiences. This is sometimes what happens with people because you'll find these people that are in a relationship with someone like that and they go, all of a sudden they're this different person. I don't understand. They're angry, they won't
Yeah.
talk, they say these things and then say they don't remember saying these things and all of this
Hmm.
stuff that's happening, but that's true.
Yeah.
That's a true thing that happens because that little version in you finally said, boom, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break you if you're not gonna deal with this. And
Hmm.
that's what happens. That
Yeah.
angry
And
teenager
that's,
and says, boom.
yeah.
And that's where that instant, oh my God, they're this angry person now and they're
Hmm.
lashing out at everything. And they don't understand why.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of that, you're like, why did I get angry? Because there was, a sweater on the back of the chair, and I went off
Hmm.
for 30 minutes about who knows what,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
Yeah,
And
you really don't know where it's
you
coming
do.
from. Like when you've lived this kind of experience and you do have those little parts of you coming up. Like when I had kids, and I mean, my daughter was about 3 when I had a complete and utter meltdown. I had a reaction to her whining about something and out of the blue. And I realized in that moment, I'm like, wow, there's something inside of me that is coming up like full force. And if I don't get control of it, I'm going to hurt one of my kids. I also realize that you don't know why you're reacting this way. And then you beat yourself up again because you're not understanding that it is that younger version of you. And so you get really hard on yourself. And for a lot of people, that's a spot that's hard to ask for help in. When you're in that space, it's hard to reach out. You know you need to, but you're so embarrassed at that point. You really have a lot of shame and guilt attached to it, and you think I should do better, and you
Right?
just start shitting all over yourself and it's true. So yeah, I can completely relate with what you're saying, and I know there's other people out there who are having these little aha moments. Hearing you explain this, it's incredible.
Oh, and people don't realize, going back to a little bit of what I was saying about like, that's just life.
Hmm.
I remember having a conversation with someone once, and they were explaining a conversation to me that they'd had, and this person was talking about violence, in life and everything, and they were having a conversation with this other person, and the other person said, I actually, I'm sorry that you've experienced that. I haven't really experienced that. And he says, wow, that's great. And then
Hmm.
they kind of continue on in the conversation. He said, well, this. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I did get punched in the face a few times from this situation or that situation. And the person's like, yeah, that's violence.
Yeah.
That was a violent
Yeah.
situation.
But you
And
don't,
it's
some people
just,
don't actually recognize that.
no, they don't. And
It's very
sometimes
normal to
it
them.
is. And abuse in any form,
Hmm.
is again sometimes sheltered in a way in our
Hmm.
mind that's just like, that was just life, that just happened. You're not that, you moved on.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But there's that little tiny version of you that happened
Hmm.
to, that's worrying about it.
Yeah.
And so if you think back and if you were telling a story of some of the things about your life, what would you think? I mean, if someone tells me they've experienced violence in some way or abuse or all of these, well, yes, there was sexual abuse here, there was verbal abuse here, there was violence here.
Hmm.
I listen to them and I understand, and I never think about judging. Do I have a moment
Hmm.
of, "Oh my goodness, I am sorry that happened to you." Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter to me because I grew up where, things were normal for me, was that there were people that ran around with guns in the neighborhood. There were people dealing drugs around the neighborhood. There were
Hmm.
people that, I mean, I could tell you the things in my family that happened along the way, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's some soap opera, that's on the thing. Most people have some experience of that. I honestly don't know anyone. I will be
Hmm.
honest. I don't know anyone that hasn't had something in
I
their
don't
life.
either.
And so, if well, my life was pretty normal. Okay, well, let's see what you think of as normal.
Yeah.
And let's see where that might have damaged the little
Hmm.
tiny version of you.
Yeah. Oh, 100% for sure. And I think when I first started diving in with a therapist and doing more healing work and some inner child work, I had like sections of years that were blank. That's very common too, right? Is you really just block out a lot. Can you explain a little bit more about the anxiety piece? Because I know that's just so prevalent in society today. So many people have anxiety, a lot of young people, but across the age spectrum, stress and anxiety.
The way that we deal with something is
Mhm.
established when we're tiny. We have the fight, flight, freeze situation. And so oftentimes, anxiety is established when we're tiny because it's a flight response. I've got
Mhm.
to get away. I've got to move. I've got to get out of this
Right.
situation. I've got to move. Along with that comes depression, phobias, often hypervigilance, the lack of focus or concentration is there.
Mhm.
And what happens with the anxiety is it is that little version of you reacting. It's that established line of code in your system that says this is how we react to this situation.
Mhm.
And so because that's that's the way that the bus knows to go. It's going to continue to go that way. Now, depending on who the bus driver is at that moment, if it's that teenager or it's that little tiny version of you, depends on how difficult that anxiety is going to be, on what that's going to look like. That might go into full-blown panic attack. And a lot of that is your body going, we need to do something. We need to do something. And the rest of you is just like, yes, but we don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. And the imagination that you have that is so beautiful and wonderful can also be in that horrible deep dive down into, oh my God, I'm gonna, lose everything. I'm going to be alone. I'm not going to have any money to survive. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be this horrible person, living out in the street, eating worms and all of this bad thing.
Yeah.
And
The
that
worst
last little
case
person,
scenario.
the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And it takes you there as a protective mode. And so oftentimes what we need to do is, I always imagine that little version of myself. I don't tell a lot of people. I call him Clyde. Clyde is this little dragon that kind of like, oh my gosh, flaps his wings and breathes fire. And he's in this mode of, oh my goodness. And it's like, all right, Clyde, thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. Can you go over in the corner and have a burger and a beer and let's just calm down for a little bit? And then it's kind of like reeling in, you reel it back in, and it takes practice. I'll be honest, it takes a little practice. And you go, yes, that's possible. Okay. But where would I change it and stop it from happening along the way? Would I, if I lost my job today, would I sit here and do nothing? Or would I go try to find a job? I know which one I would do. I might sit for a little while, but I'm going to go find the job because I need to pay this bill, pay that bill, do this thing, whatever it is. And is it always, what if I don't have the job that I want? What if it's horrible? What if I have to go and work at McDonald's? And it's like, well, I highly doubt I'm going to have to work at McDonald's. I have worked at McDonald's. But I hope that I don't have to. And that's kind of where I bring it down again. I understand that, but I hope that I don't have to. And then I start to go, what if everything went really good and right? What might that look like? And sometimes we can have a hard time going on that road and seeing that, because maybe stuff has really gone wrong and it's like, this is my life. This is what happens. Everything goes wrong. Everything is horrible. Okay. But there was a time somewhere where something went right, where you enjoyed yourself in some way. I hope. I really hope. And so think about that moment for a minute. What did that look like? That was possible. So that's possible again. And you remind Clyde, let's fly this way. Let's go this way a little bit. Let's play on this road a little bit. And you start to go down that. And then that version of anxiety that is in you is able to calm a little bit. But I'll be honest with you. It's not going to go away no matter what tips, tricks, things that you do in the middle of it to try and calm yourself. I saw someone one time, they had their little kid, and I was like, oh my goodness, I love that you're trying to help yourself, but the fact that you are even having your little child involved in your panic attack broke my heart. Because, it was like, blow the little candles out, bring your breath back. And the little girl was helping her. But you don't need to be in that. You are never too broken to be fixed. And you do not have to learn to live with whatever's going on for you. You go in and you fix that. And that's always my biggest recommendation. Find the coping thing in the moment, whether that's medication, those tips and tricks and tactics, whatever it is. Find it in the moment, but go get it out. Get it reset. Get it cleared.
Like, do the deeper work. Get the codes, rewritten and all that stuff. I 100% couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Because until you do, all you're doing is covering it and clipping off a piece of that weed but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to grow back, and it might grow
Yeah.
back worse because it's still trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
That's why it gets worse. That's why it goes into something more. That's why if that's not getting your attention, you're going to start finding something else wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, why do I all of a sudden have digestive issues? I've never had digestive issues. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what is going on that every time I get in this situation, I'm ruminating on this one thing. What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Those are you
Yeah.
calling for attention. It's
Mm-hmm.
you saying, help.
Yeah. And I totally agree. It can be very scary to take that step. You know, a lot of people don't ever do that deep work and they just keep putting the band-aids on time and time again
Mhm.
and redoing those patterns over and over. I think some people get to a point where you just kind of like, okay, I've had enough. Like I just can't live this way anymore. Or you're just so frustrated with yourself and everything that's going on around you. But I really encourage everyone that as scary as it seems and as much fear as you might have about speaking up or reaching out to a practitioner or a coach or a therapist to have some deeper work done, it is so rewarding and so freeing to participate in that and to really heal all those little pathways and unstack all those little cups, right? It is really, really rewarding in the end. And you look back and you're like, wow, I should have done that sooner. Like that's the only regret I ever have about any of the healing I've done is I wish I would have done it sooner and not been so afraid to take that step. Do you have any advice for someone who is feeling really stuck about reaching out to start healing this stuff? What's something that you would say to someone to help them?
I think I said it a few minutes ago, is that you are never too broken. You are
Hmm.
never too broken to be healed. And you absolutely do not have to learn to live with it. People will say, and that's where the coping mechanisms come in. How can you help me cope? How can you help me get through this moment? How can you? And that's great. We all need those moments because we do still experience life. That's
Yeah.
one thing I want to make sure I say to everyone is when I help someone, I don't take away feelings. I don't take away the experience that you're going to have in life because we're meant to experience life. And you're
Hmm.
going to go through anxious moments. You're going to go through angry moments. You're going to go through all of them. The thing is, they should not expand so far that they're damaging parts of your life, parts of you, or you should not be dwelling in them for a length of time, which
Hmm.
is where depression and sometimes anger and those things and anxiety come into
Yeah.
play. Is it's almost like you get stuck. And I often relate it to like being on a roller coaster. That's we're supposed to be in flow in through
Hmm.
all of the different experiences in life, including emotions. But what happens with hypnosis and the work that I do is it goes in and it gives you that center balance, that pillar within yourself that just lets you breathe and go, all right, I'm okay. This
Hmm.
person has really upset me. This situation has really upset me. I just got this huge bill. I'm concerned and worried about it. But you don't go down that horrible road. Or if you do, even for a few minutes, you're able to bring yourself back and go, but I'm okay. And we'll
Hmm.
figure that out. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, which is a scary spot to be.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take it here and now and do what I can. And the magic of hypnosis that I love too is I often tell people, we work so hard, and this is a lot what probably you and I did. We work and work, and it's like climbing this mountain. You're trying to climb
Hmm.
the mountain. You're trying to get to the other side where there's peace, where there's contentment, where that you're okay, and you
Hmm.
can maybe find some happiness. And so you're doing whatever it takes, climbing hard, you're maybe even hurting yourself, going, it's so much effort. And what I've found is that there's this little secret tunnel that goes underneath, and I get to open the door and say, let's go this way
Hmm.
instead. You still get to the same place. You get there quicker, easier, and it's more complete. It's absolutely there. And you don't suffer through all of the stuff that's there. So it's kind of your choice. I mean, if you feel like, no, it has to be hard and it has to be difficult in order for me to
Uh-huh.
heal, and it's going to take years and years and years, then you're going to suffer and you're going to go through that. And it is going to be hard and it is going to be all of those things. But if you think even for 2 seconds, and maybe even through hearing this, just a flash of a moment that says, it's got to be easier. There's got to be an easier way. Boom. Reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out with that thought and grab onto that and go, I really think there's an easier way to do
Uh-huh.
this. And then you'll start finding those easier ways. You'll find you'll find me, you'll find the person that can help you. And maybe that person will lead you even to the next person that can help you in another way that
Uh-huh.
that is introducing you to something else wonderful. Because once you clear the way, once you open and get all that stuff out of the way, it's like, wow. Now what? Now what do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you need someone that stays with you in those next steps,
Yeah.
that's walking you through and helping you
Mm-hmm.
make some of those choices that are really going to bring that happiness going forward, that are really going to do those things that's like, because before that wasn't even on the table. There were
Mm-hmm.
too many things in the way, too many obstacles, too much. It's just like, how can I ever be there when I'm here? But once
Yeah.
you clear that, it's like, oh, wow, now what?
Mm-hmm.
And then
It's
you
like
get
this
to move
deep sense
forward.
of peace and knowing,
Yes,
comes over
absolutely.
you, and everything feels more aligned. And you're right, life happens. There's going to be stuff that comes up all the time. That's just, we're humans. But just that fact that you have this sense of peace and knowing inside yourself, it's so much easier to make decisions from that point. It's so much easier to move through and allow those emotions to flow through you instead of getting stuck. I love
Yeah,
that.
because we're energy and we're meant to
Yeah.
have flow. And that
Mm-hmm.
means emotions. And the biggest thing that people do is they'll try to stop those emotions, which stops the flow, which gets you stuck,
Mm-hmm.
but once you open up, and the thing that people need to understand is you can experience emotions for a few moments. And sometimes that's absolutely enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you open that door and say, all right, I'm feeling sad. I need to feel sad for a moment, and you let that flow through you and move through you,
Yeah.
kind of like maybe imagine water flowing over you, and that's as long as it takes, and it goes off. Will it
Mm-hmm.
come back? Maybe, but then you do it again and you let it kind of flow through you.
Mm-hmm.
But the wonderful thing is when you open that flow, you're allowing the next emotion, which might be feeling okay, which
Yeah.
then might be happiness, which
Mm-hmm.
then might be joy, and all of those things. You're allowing the flow to go. But when you're like, I can't face that, I can't deal with that, I can't be in that, you're stopping the good things from being able to
Yeah.
flow in.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. Beautifully said for sure. Do you do hypnotherapy online? Like, do you do virtual stuff?
Yeah, that's where I do all my work,
Oh,
actually.
is it? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you able to do that for people anywhere? Like yeah,
Yeah, I work
awesome.
with a lot of people overseas, in the UK, and
Yeah.
I love it. In Ireland and Australia gets a little interesting time-wise, but I've
Yeah.
done that too. And
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
love it because it just opens up, and people are like, "Wow, what if we get disconnected? Am I going to be stuck in hypnosis?" No, you're not going to be stuck in hypnosis. It's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
a couple other things there just for a moment is, no, I don't control your mind. I
Yeah.
have enough controlling my own. I don't even want to control yours.
Yeah.
So that's not my control. It's all about, people will go, well, what about those people that cluck like chickens on the stage? Or they do, well, they gave permission. They said, yes, let's have some fun. Let's play. Let's
Yeah.
do this. They said yes.
Yeah, they
So
agreed. They made an agreement with that,
yes,
right?
they made an
Yeah.
agreement. And so when you
Yeah.
come and work with me, you're making an agreement, and
Yeah.
there's a trust. And we always go through kind of an opening session that's really nice, and it's like a negativity clearing session, and it kind of
Uh-huh.
opens the door so that if you've never experienced hypnosis, which actually everyone probably has, but
Uh-huh.
um, you get to experience the fullness of that. And tell me, did you feel through that? Were there any parts that there was a word that triggered you, or there was process in there that you didn't like, or because then I adjust. We go
Hmm.
forward and I adjust. I don't use that word. I change that little, way of going
Yeah.
about whatever it is. That's why I love what I do, is because on the one, and I actually do some group hypnosis too. I have a little tiny, what you call, I guess, membership
Hmm.
that I do on Sundays, and we do some group hypnosis, and we're working on uh, different things each month, and so that's a fun thing too. And
Hmm.
all of it kind of has a different place between group and individual and recordings and live and all of that. But it all does
Nice.
wonders because it all goes in to the mainframe of your mind and makes
Hmm.
the change and hits the reset button at the level that we need it, at
Yeah,
the level that it needs to be done.
it's like let's just put the bus driver here and we'll get into the bus and see what's going on, right?
Yeah, change the
Yeah,
GPS directions a little bit and
exactly. Yeah,
we're
yeah.
like, hey, I want you to take a left, and the bus is still going, and you're like, so
That's right. So I have a question too about, and this is something that come up for me. I was very hyper vigilant and very hyper independent. And so my control level was off the charts. And I had this, view that, oh, I can't be hypnotized. Like, it's not going to work for me because my mind is just so strong. I won't allow someone to guide me that way. So how does that work and how do you address that? Because when you grow up in that environment, I was terrified to let someone else have the control because I thought I was going to fall to pieces. And so how do you address that with someone who would like to try hypnosis, but they're really skeptical, let's say?
I'm okay with skeptical. I want willing. And that was the
Yeah,
key part that you just said. If they
right.
want to try, if they're willing to try, then they're going to have an experience that works with them and changes. Maybe they'll have some kickback. Maybe they'll have moments. I have experienced people more than once that, mid session, boom, they pop up and they're like, okay, I'm awake. And
Yeah.
if I can, we'll relax back in. But if at that moment they're like, I don't think I can do anymore, we'll leave it alone because
Hmm.
because you have that little teenager in there and they're probably kicking back at something.
Yeah.
And so we have to kind of get used to the fact that I'm going to be here for a little bit, and I'm going to be continuing the
Hmm.
conversation. I'm going to tour along, whether you like it or not, and we're going to continue to do this. And if you are willing enough and wanting enough of the change, then you are going to be okay. You are absolutely going to be
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And think about all the times when you've probably already been hypnotized. It's
Hmm.
it's a focused concentration
Yeah.
basically, and allowing yourself to kind of be in that. So you're just following along.
Yeah.
You've driven home or driven and not
Hmm.
noticed miles,
Yeah.
right?
You can't remember if you stopped at the red light or not. Some
Right? Oh
days.
gosh, did
Yeah.
I? And that, I mean, people probably even had, did I actually stop at the store? And it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I
Mhm.
did stop at
Yeah.
I go look for the groceries, and it's like, oh
Hmm.
yes, I did. That's hypnosis. You're in this other
Hmm.
focused state. And so that's what that is. That's
Yeah.
that's a way of being in that. If you're involved in a movie, oh my goodness, and you're just along and you're feeling all the feelings and you're doing it, and maybe it's a drama and you're in the middle of it, and then there's the surprise moment and you're like, oh my goodness, that's hypnosis. That's
Hmm.
the same
Yeah.
thing. So if you can do those things, or if you've experienced that, then I'm pretty sure you're going to be okay in the hypnosis realm.
Yeah.
Are there people that really fight it? Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
And I'm going to tell them, when you're ready and when you are truly willing for that change, come back. And I will often give them a recording or something to listen to kind of get used to the process for a while. And it'll be
Right.
like, try this for, a week or 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Come back, we'll see how it's going. But I have never had anyone, knock on wood, that that they just couldn't do it.
Right.
So,
I mean, obviously, they're not even showing up in your office or they're not showing up for you if they're in
yeah,
that
well,
state, right?
you know, I've, I know one person, but it's a family member, and I'm not going to push with them because they're a close
Right.
family member, and it's not going to go well if I try and do that anyway. I would
Yeah,
have them go to
exactly.
somebody else.
Yeah.
But other than that, and I just look at them and go, well, if you're managing, okay, but if you get to a plot where you can't manage, then
Hmm. Yeah.
I think we should go here and try it.
Yeah.
Because even if it's just the conversation along the way,
Mhm.
oftentimes people will experience change process if you're with a skilled person in the conversation, because there's
Mhm.
what's called like a pre-talk where you're talking with them and you're already starting the change process for them. You're starting to say, what do you want? What do you want it to look like? And they're in that process in the mind
Mhm.
finding that. Okay, let's think about that, and what would that look like for you, and how would that show up in your life, and things like that. So
Yeah,
so
like
that
creating a
in it,
safe space first, right? Which
yeah,
is really important with people who
it
have
is.
trauma for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I have been hypnotized. And when I was younger, definitely not. I was fighting it for sure. I was curious, but I just wasn't ready. And then years later, I had a lady give me just a recording, like a hypnosis recording, and it was just on different things like sleep or weight loss or something like that. And and eventually when I was listening to it, like I wouldn't even make it 2 minutes in, like like gone, you know? And then
Yeah.
I had someone do kind of like a past life thing, and they really put you into like a really very relaxed state. Like power suggestion, right? Just like you're really just sliding into that deep, relaxed state. And you're still conscious, you're still awake, like you know what you're doing. It's not, there was nothing scary about it, and that really changed my perception on, the hypnosis part, and really allowing myself to relax into that, and knowing that I was helping myself heal and doing the work, right, that needed to be done. But yeah, at
Well,
first it can be scary.
it can be. But
Yeah.
most people will, I want to tell it, and this is what I tell everyone. I You cannot do it wrong, in
Yeah.
my opinion. With me, you can't do wrong, because I have people who will stay aware in some way through the whole process. They'll hear every part of it.
Yeah.
I have people who will fade in and out. Well, I kind of heard this. I think I went out a little. I came back. I went out.
Hmm.
And then I have people that they don't remember any part of it. They just
Wow.
they go out. I mean, I think they snore through part of it sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's okay. They
Yeah.
come back awake when I ask them to, and they do those things, and so you can't do it wrong, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And so
Hmm.
don't worry about how you do hypnosis. It will be
Right.
what's right for you, and it can change,
Yeah.
because you do come into that trust factor. You do
Yeah.
come into that, oh, this is okay. And then I have people who are like, can we just do it like once a month? Because I feel so good after. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely, let's do it once a month for a while, so that
Yeah.
you can move into that relaxed state and be where you want to be. And
Yeah.
and again, yes, I do often give recordings as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this has been very enlightening, and I love talking about this. I could probably talk another 2 hours about this subject. I think it's just fascinating tapping into the subconscious or unconscious mind, right? And bringing stuff out. Is there anything that you want to talk about or put out there? Have you got anything coming up that you want to plug?
Oh, no, I mean, I would share just about my I say little because I've just started it as a small project. I don't know where it's
Mm-hmm.
going to go, what it's going to do, but my Sunday morning group hypnosis is something that is kind of fresh and new out there, and it's a monthly thing. You come every week,
Mm-hmm.
and you can come live, or you get a recording after, and so you absolutely get, either way, you get the process of it. And last month we worked on relationships and all the different
Mm-hmm.
relationships that are there. This month in March, I always associate it with St. Patrick's Day and luck and abundance and all that fun stuff. So we're doing
Mm-hmm.
abundance and wealth and all the financial stuff this month in March. And no matter what time of month you come in, you would get the whole month, the
Mm-hmm.
recordings for the whole month, and that. And then you stay at that whatever price you come in, you'd stay at for the
Yeah.
duration of the time there. But I love doing that. I think group work has a specific energy that comes in that's
Mm-hmm.
super fun to play with
Yeah.
and have, because everyone kind of has the same focus and attention,
Yep.
and I think that adds to it a little bit. So I have that. And then I have some free things on my website that you're absolutely welcome. I know there's a short meditation on there a
Mm-hmm.
little tiny hypnosis that you could do, and also what's called subliminal. There's a subliminal one on there. And the only thing about subliminal is that you can kind of listen to it when you're doing other things. I listen to hypnosis that way
Mm-hmm.
sometimes too, just because that's me. But not while you're driving. I have to say,
No.
not while you're driving.
No, please no.
But the subliminal is you just hear the music and you don't really hear the underlying words, and so
Right.
it's a little bit of a almost like a mantra or a
Yeah.
affirmation type thing that you can just put on, and it's for
Mm-hmm.
ending procrastination that's there. And we didn't get into it, but there's also a one for color that's on there that's super fun that you can do. And color is a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, fun way to activate and kind of help your subconscious work with
Mm-hmm.
you in ways. So if you're intending to open up communication, you really want to work on your communication, you can activate the color green, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes in and it kind of helps you. And then you have a little bit of an anchor. So you find something green. And then when you set that intention and you move in, your mind sees every time, whether you actually consciously know it or not, your mind is seeing green and it's going, oh, yes, we're working on communication, and it's going to help you do that and help
Mm-hmm.
bring you to the things and the people and the ways of doing that. So it's a great little kind
Exactly.
of, I hate to say hack, but it almost is a little hack.
It is, yeah.
A quick
Yeah.
hack into that, and it kind of just changes the energy that you're
Mm-hmm.
in around there. So you can go to my website and find a couple of those free things that are fun, and then you'll find my programs that are on there as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll post all that in the show notes so people can contact you and maybe dip their feet in the hypnosis water and get a little feel for what you do. And yeah, the group thing sounds awesome. So I love it when cohesive energies come together. You always get something from other people too, right? So
Yes.
I love that. I want to thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation, and I learned a lot for sure. And I'm really curious about hypnosis now and maybe giving it another try. So, yeah, I love that.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome. Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful conversation, and I hope it gets to all the right people.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.